Okay, welcome to my tutorial here on rigging an aircraft in Blender, at least the control surfaces, the flaps and stabilizers and things like that. This is something that was really frustrating for me for a long time, and I think I've got it pretty much figured out now, and I just wanted to share it with you guys so I can hopefully save you a little bit of a pain in the butt that I went through. Uh, and especially when you have an aircraft like this, where the tail fins, the vertical stabilizers aren't straight up and down, you have to get things to rotate it on a strange axis and follow other things around. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that really fast, and hopefully it'll be enjoyable. So grab yourself a beverage or whatever and we'll get started with this. Okay, let's take a quick look at what I've already got. This is just my model here. It's a F-22 Raptor, just a really low poly version. And then separate from that, well, here I'll hide the actual airplane. You can see we've got our pieces that we're going to rig. So I've got two vertical stabilizer fins, one for each side, two ailerons, I guess is the correct pronunciation, and then we have the flaps, the inside ones, and then the horizontal stabilizers here are one piece actually, because they're always going to move together, so I don't need two separate objects for that. Alright, so that's the point I'm going to be starting from, so grab yourself an aircraft model. I'm sure there's plenty of them out there. And just make sure you have separate objects for all the stuff that you want to rig, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start by adding some empties. We'll go with the cube first. Alright, it doesn't have to be a cube, but traditionally I think it is. And we'll just call this one F-22 model, because it'll be controlling the entire model. Alright, and then we'll add another one. Use a sphere, scale that down so it fits inside, although I guess it doesn't really matter. And we'll call that rig controller. Alright, and we'll add plane axes, two of them. Alright, and we'll call this one base, and we'll call this one target. Alright, so that's the basic empties that we're going to need. We'll have a couple sets of these base and target ones, but we're going to rig one set first and then duplicate it to save a little bit of work. Unfortunately, the next thing that we have to do is the parenting, and we got to do it at this point in the process, even though it doesn't make as much sense right now as it might later. So I'll try to explain it here. It's not that hard. So the body of the airplane needs to be parented directly to the control. So I'll do that, because whenever this is the thing you're going to grab when you want the aircraft to move around the scene or whatever, you're going to grab that master empty and do that. Alright, the rig controller itself is also going to be parented to this directly. Okay, again, so now they both move with it. And this is the part that's a little confusing. The base, which is going to be sort of the hinge for our various parts, when we duplicate it, is going to be parented as well directly to the master empty. But the target is not. The target is going to be parented to the rig controller, like that. So you can see now when we grab this, everything does move around, because even the target empty is parented to this, but this is in turn parented to that. So it does take it with it. The only things that aren't moving with it are the actual control surfaces that we want to rig, and those are going to be parented to this. So eventually everything will move together. So now we need to do some actual rigging. Let's go ahead and grab our base here, and we're going to go ahead and add a constraint. We'll do a lock track, and we'll track to target right there. Okay, and we're going to lock the y-axis right here. Okay, and we're going to track to the negative x, because the x arrow is pointing that way, so we're going to track the opposite way, negative x. So now when I grab this one, I hope you can see, the empty will track it, but only with the y-axis locked, which is what we want. Alright, so we're going to grab this, move it in, and basically we're going to move it to the point where we want our horizontal stabilizers to rotate at, which I think should be Probably right about there. Okay. So let's duplicate this before we do anything else and move it out. Alright, and now what I'm going to do is take my horizontal stabilizers and parent them. Oops, actually this needs to move up. Yeah, that base. So, there we go. Alright. Get this sort of level with the horizontal stabilizers. Find out if I got it right in a second. Okay. Yeah, that works. So when you move this empty up and down, you can see that the horizontal stabilizers actually track to it, so that's good. The next thing we're going to do is do something similar, but you'll notice over here that this is at kind of a weird angle, because you don't want it to rotate straight up and down. In fact, I can show you exactly why you don't. So like when you take this, we'll do origin to geometry really quick. When you rotate it on the y-axis, you can see that's not really how it's supposed to rotate, right? Because it's slightly off-center from the y-axis. But that's no problem, because we'll just take our controllers here, and because the lock track constraint is in local space, we can just grab these like that. We'll just line it up. You could do this exactly, but I think we can eyeball it here. Alright, so then let's just get this on the right height, I guess. The right point on the z-axis. And I think it's also at a bit of an angle. Yeah. A bit of an angle here as well. Right there in the middle. Okay. So that should work, and then we'll just parent this to that. So now our Aurelion, I guess, is called. It will move correctly on its axis. Alright. So we'll just go ahead and grab these again. It's a little different. Cool, so that works too. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and repeat these for the other side, but I'm not going to make you guys watch it, so when I come right back, we'll go ahead and do the vertical ones. Okay, I've gone ahead and rigged the other side here. And now, because these are all parented to the rig controller, we can just rotate this on the y-axis, and you can see the fins and flaps and stabilizers move with it. So if you wanted to rig this for an animation, you wouldn't have to painstakingly move each one of these little things. You just do the whole rig controller and everything works together. With one problem here, and I realize I screwed this up, because the horizontal stabilizers actually work the opposite of how you might think they would. Because you would think that if the aircraft was going to dive, sort of head down, that they would face down. But they actually work the opposite of that. Because when the air comes, it'll hit the horizontal stabilizers and it'll go up, which pushes the back end of the aircraft down, which pushes the nose of the aircraft up. So it is actually used for climbing. At least I'm about 90% sure that's correct. If I'm wrong, I'm sure somebody will let me know in the comments section. But if you ever see a picture of an aircraft taking off from like a carrier, the horizontal stabilizers are always pointed down for, I'm pretty sure for that reason. So we're going to go ahead and flip that and make them work the opposite way of what they're doing now. So right now, let me set this back to 0. I've got them tracking to this, the little base down here, and all I'm just going to do is flip the direction. So instead of -x, we're going to track to x, You can see the fins flipped completely around, which is fine. We'll just bring this in, probably right about there, and we'll adjust it so it's level there. Okay. And then this should, yeah, now they're working the opposite. And it's pretty cool because they don't even move that much. I was going to show you guys that too. Depending on how far back you have these targets from the rig controller will, or in front of them, as the case may be, will affect the degree to which they're affected. So in other words, if I have this right up here, it's going to affect it a lot more. It'll move a lot more with this than if I have it where it was. Okay, so the amount of influence that the rig controller has over the individual control surface is affected by how far the target is from the rig controller. Hopefully you guys followed that. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and rig these horizontal ones, so it's basically the same as what we've been doing. So let me grab these two again. We'll put this back to -x. Except this is going to be different because we're going to lock the let's see. We're not going to lock the y-axis. We're going to lock the z-axis. And we're going to track it on the -x. So that's correct. Okay. So let's just move this up here so they line up. Rotate that so it's at the right angle there. I think that's close enough. Alright, so let's try this. Okay, it is working, so let's parent this to that. And we'll try this again. Okay, so there's your vertical. I think I didn't get it quite right, the angle, but it's pretty close. And like I said, I could have done it exactly, but I decided not to, so this is what I get. So I'm going to go ahead and just rig the other side really quick, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I went ahead and did the one for the other side here, same as this one. So we're basically done now with what we're going to do, but I want to show you a couple things and kind of give you ideas of what else you could do with this. So you'll notice if we rotate this on the z-axis now, your vertical stabilizers will move in the correct direction, which is pretty cool. And then if you rotate it on the y-axis, your other control surfaces will work. Now you'll notice that these are still here. When we rotate it on the y-axis, they probably shouldn't move, but they are moving. They're coming closer together or further apart, just because these aren't at exact angles. And that's really the reason. So you could move this so it's facing directly in front of this, or really what you could do is just add a limit location constraint to it. And you just go down here, limit location, and you limit it on the local space, not the world space, because you'd still want it to move around the whole world with the aircraft. And if you did that, you could keep those from moving. Another thing you'd probably want to do is go to your individual bases here where the hinges are and add a limit rotation constraint so they didn't accidentally rotate too far up or too far down, because now there's no limit on them. So if I rotate this to a ridiculous point, they'll actually flip over, see? So you probably want to put a limit on those. Alright, and then one thing that's really cool that you could do is you could just take the rig controller itself and add a limit rotation, X, Y, and Z, world space, and then your rig would really be cool because you would be able to just ignore it. So you just grab your entire aircraft model, move it around the scene, and then when you rotated the aircraft, your control surfaces would automatically function. See, so you could just completely ignore that rig and just go on with your animation. And that'd be a pretty cool thing to do. I think it would work. It looks like it's working. There may be some limitations to it that I can't think of right now, but I'm sure you could figure it out. So anyway, that's about all we're going to do. Hopefully at least this gets you started on rigging the aircraft. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to shoot me a message. And hopefully this was somewhat productive. So thanks.